3 years ago, my son Eric met a city girl in Portland and ended up marrying her. From that day on, his mother from the small town of Willow Creek, became in her eyes that old lady from the sticks. "Grace, please stop coming into the city," she said once over the phone, her voice cold and clipped. "You always smell a little like livestock. I worry it's not good for the baby." Later, my grandson Joshua was born. She didn't even send me a photo. I only found out they were throwing a first birthday party for Joshua because a neighbor happened to mention it in passing. I wanted to be there more than anything. I picked up the phone and called immediately. Her voice on the other end was like ice. "Grace, it's better if you don't come. You wouldn't really fit in with our crowd. And honestly, I don't want things to be awkward in front of our friends." I paused for a few seconds. Said nothing more. Hung up. Then I called Mason, the local livestock buyer. "Come by tomorrow," I said. "Take all the pigs. Every last one." On Joshua's birthday, I put on my best clean clothes, took the bank book full of handwritten numbers and walked into the banquet hall. The room went so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Eric works at a city-run energy office in Portland. Steady job. Quiet man. 3 years ago, he brought home a woman named Vanessa. She was beautiful, draped in designer labels, her nails painted a glossy, aggressive red, city-raised, no question. Even then, I had this uneasy feeling. A woman like that would never respect someone like me, someone who raised pigs and lived off the land. Sure enough, on their wedding day, I wore a red dress tailored by the best seamstress in town. I even put on the gold necklace Henry gave me on our wedding day. I wanted to look presentable, respectable enough not to embarrass my son. But as soon as I stepped up to the hotel entrance, Vanessa's mother, Brenda, looked me up and down like she'd spotted something unsightly. Her lip curled. "Oh my God," she muttered. "Where did you even get that dress? That cut? It's so outdated." My face burned with shame, but I forced a smile. "We don't have big stores out in Willow Creek. It's handmade by a local." Vanessa stood nearby, lips twitching with amusement. She leaned over to whisper something to her mother. I pretended not to notice. Reached into my purse and handed them the wedding gift I'd spent a year saving up for, $10,000 all in cash tucked neatly into an envelope. "It's not much," I said, "just what I scraped together from selling pigs. You two take it for whatever you need." Vanessa took it without so much as a glance in my direction. Her nose twitched like she was smelling something foul. Later I went to the bathroom. That's when I heard her in the women's room talking to one of her girlfriends. "Did you smell her? Like she walked straight out of a barn. And that money? Probably her life savings." She acted like it was gold. I stood frozen in the stall, my chest tight with pain, like every word was a pin shoved straight into my heart. But what could I say? She was my son's choice. That night I told Henry, "She looks down on us." Henry just sighed. "It's their life now. Best not to get involved." I found out Vanessa was pregnant through a phone call from Eric. I was so thrilled I didn't sleep a wink that night. Before the sun even rose, I was already in the garden, picking the freshest vegetables I could find. I packed 2 heavy bags and caught the first bus to Portland. All the way there I kept thinking, what should a pregnant woman eat to stay healthy? Would chicken soup help? Maybe next time I should bring some homemade stew. When I got to their building, I called from downstairs. Vanessa answered in a low voice, but her tone was stiff. "Grace, I just woke up. The doctor said I need strict bed rest during the first trimester. Please don't come up." I said, "I'll just drop the veggies off and leave. I won't stay long." She hesitated, then added, "Grace, coming straight from the farm, your clothes might carry bacteria. It's not ideal for a pregnant woman. Just leave the bags by the door. Eric will bring them in when he gets off work." I paused, glanced down at the clean clothes I'd put on just that morning. Still, it felt like a weight had landed on my chest. "All right then," I said softly. "Take care and get some rest." I placed the bags gently by the door but didn't leave right away. Instead, I wandered near the entrance, waiting around the complex, just hoping to catch a glimpse of my son. Then, out of nowhere, it started to rain. I didn't have an umbrella, so I huddled under the awning of a nearby convenience store. I stood there for nearly an hour. My back started to ache and my legs went numb. Just when I thought about giving up, my phone rang. It was Eric. "Mom, you're still here? I've got a meeting soon. Can we just meet outside real quick?" "Of course," I said without hesitation. Rain or not, I just wanted to see him. When Eric finally appeared, I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes, but it vanished quickly. He looked rushed, distracted. He checked his watch a few times, then handed me a cup of coffee. "Mom, it's really cold out. Please head home. I can't step away today." I took the cup and glanced down at it, already feeling the chill in my hands. I knew then he was politely pushing me out. 5 minutes later he was gone. I stood there alone in the rain, holding that now cold coffee with nothing left to say. Last year, Eric called to tell me Vanessa had given birth to a baby boy. My hands trembled so hard I could barely pack. I rushed to catch the next bus to Portland. When I arrived at the hospital, I called 3 times before Eric finally came downstairs to meet me. "Mom, Vanessa just gave birth. The doctor said too many visitors aren't good for her recovery. Once she's feeling better, you can come meet the baby." I nodded. "That's fine. I'll just wait in the hallway. Even seeing him from a distance is enough." I sat there the entire day. Eventually, I caught a glimpse as a nurse carried the baby down the hall for a checkup. Chubby, pale skin, beautiful eyes. He was absolutely precious. That night, I stayed in a cheap motel next to the hospital. At dawn, I hurried back. Vanessa had been moved to a regular room. I stepped in just hoping to hold my grandson for the first time. "Grace, don't touch him," Vanessa suddenly shouted, startling me. Before I could react, Brenda swooped in and snatched the baby from my arms. Her voice was sharp as a knife. "Have you washed those hands? Properly disinfected? You've been around livestock." I looked down at my hands, scrubbed raw, covered in calluses. "I did wash them. They're clean. I swear." Brenda rolled her eyes. "People from the country don't know a damn thing about hygiene. Raising a baby here isn't something just anyone gets to do." I stood there, my hands stiff at my sides, feeling ashamed for the first time of how rough and red they were. As if the decades of work they'd done were suddenly something to hide. Eric said nothing. His eyes darted around the room, refusing to meet mine. He looked like a schoolboy caught cheating on a test. I swallowed my pride and blinked back tears. "I won't touch him," I whispered. "I'll just look." And that's how I stood in the corner of the room, like a stranger, watching my newborn grandson from afar, not even allowed to hold his tiny fingers. When I got back to Willow Creek, I didn't tell a soul what had happened. When Henry asked about the baby, I just smiled and said, "The child's doing great. They're taking good care of him." I didn't say another word. Instead, I quietly started expanding the farm. Every morning, I was up at 3. Feeding pigs, shoveling waste, scrubbing troughs, hauling feed. I worked straight through to 11 at night, my back aching so bad I could barely stand by the end of the day. My knees swelled up like there were softballs jammed inside, but I gritted my teeth and never complained. People in town said I was crazy. Said I was too old, past 60, and had no business working myself into the ground. I always gave the same answer: "I'm saving up for my sweet grandson. It's worth it." Henry looked at the deep cracks and calluses on my hands, his eyes full of worry. "Grace, please. Just take a break. Look at your knees, you can barely walk." I pressed my lips together. "This is all I know, Henry. What else would I do if I stopped raising pigs? They look down on me. So I'll prove myself the only way I can." Henry didn't say anything more. Just sighed. I often stood alone by the pig pens, tears streaming down my face, but I made sure no one ever saw. After I learned how to use Facebook, I started sending Eric private messages every day at the same time, asking about Joshua. His replies were always short. "He's doing fine. Slept a lot today. Caught a bit of a cold." I asked again and again if he could send some photos or maybe a short video. He always had an excuse. "Too busy, phone battery died, the baby just fell asleep." One day, I accidentally discovered he had set all my video call requests to auto-reject. And the posts I shared from the farm? He never liked a single one. Vanessa was more blunt. She had me under restricted. I couldn't see a single thing she posted. That moment, I clicked the lock screen. The phone went dark, just like my heart. I was his grandmother, yet I didn't even know what my own grandson looked like. When I sat with the women in town, they'd all gush about their grandkids. "My grandson's already in preschool. The teacher says he's got a real head for numbers. My granddaughter started ballet lessons. Let me show you a video." When it came to me, I just forced a smile. My grandson's still little. Chubby and sweet. Looks a lot like his dad. "Come on, show us a picture." I mumbled an excuse and slipped away, crouching behind the pig barn to wipe my tears in private. When Joshua's christening approached, I thought surely they'll invite me this time. But days passed. Not a single call. I finally asked Eric about it. On the phone, his voice was hesitant, uncertain. Mom, Vanessa just wants to keep it small. Her parents and a few close friends. Nothing big. It's really not worth the trip. I swallowed the lump in my throat and changed my tone. I made a cotton baby outfit, I said. Maybe I can just mail it? Better not. The mail can be kind of dirty. Maybe just bring it next time. I didn't argue. The next day I packed the tiny outfit and got on a bus to Portland. When I arrived at their building, the security guard stopped me. No entry without the resident's approval. I called Eric. He said he was in a meeting and asked me to wait. It was late winter. Sleet fell from the sky. The wind cut straight through my coat. I waited outside the guard booth for 3 hours. My feet went numb. My knees burned from the cold. Finally, Eric came down. He took the outfit quickly without warmth. His voice was impatient. Mom, Vanessa said, please stop coming by like this. He thinks you have a smell. It's not good for the baby. I looked down at myself. That day I'd showered, sprayed a little perfume. I made sure I was clean today. Okay, he said, waving me off. Just go. Don't let Vanessa see you. It'll only upset her. And just like that, he turned and walked away without a glance back. I rode the bus home in tears. A young woman sitting nearby handed me a tissue and asked gently, Ma'am, are you okay? I shook my head quickly, wiping my eyes. It's nothing. Just the wind. Something got in my eye. Not long after I returned to town, I attended an agricultural expo and came across a newly introduced Dutch pig breed. Tender meat, low fat, fast growth. The only downside? The price, steep. I wrestled with the idea for 2 nights, then finally bit the bullet and invested $20,000 to bring in a few breeder pigs. Henry was livid. He shook his head, frustrated. What are you trying to prove? We've been raising pigs for years and selling just fine. Why take such a risk now? I stayed firm. It's different now. City folks care more and more about eating clean. If the pigs are high quality, they'll fetch high prices. 6 months later, I was proven right. The meat from that new breed was incredibly tender and nearly fat-free. A high-end organic grocery chain in Portland took notice and signed a long-term supply contract. The price? More than double the market average. I dove in deeper, studying modern farming techniques, hiring vets for regular health checkups, even spending the extra money to get organic certification. Then I branded it. My own label, Willow Grove Farms. At first, folks around town laughed at me. What's this nonsense about eco-friendly pig farming? Social media promotion? That's just city people gimmicks. But when the owner of that Portland supermarket toured my farm, he was impressed on the spot and signed a cooperation agreement on the same day. Walking through the barn, he kept nodding. Ms. Grace, your operation is extremely professional, meets all the standards for certified organic. We're excited to work with you long-term. Over the next 2 years, I expanded production and taught myself business management and marketing. I even hired a recent Portland State graduate to help me set up accounting systems and teach me how to manage spreadsheets and inventory efficiently. I launched an online ordering system, recruited a few local kids to run our social media, and before I knew it, Willow Grove Farms became a buzzword among high-end restaurants. We went from 50 pigs to 500, then to 5,000. The farm grew. Orders poured in. I started hiring folks from neighboring towns. Before long, I had become the largest employer in the area, helping more than 30 families find stable income. At every town hall meeting, the district supervisor made me a highlight. Grace Miller is remarkable. She put our town on the agricultural map. She deserves every ounce of support we can give. But I never mentioned any of this to my son. To them, I was still the same old pig-feeding mom. The country bumpkin in rubber boots. Last winter, a group of experts from the Oregon Department of Agriculture came to inspect the farm. They spent half an hour in my eco-waste treatment center and walked out beaming. This closed-loop system is a textbook model for sustainable agriculture. A few days later, a journalist knocked on my door, wanted to write a feature story titled, The Rise of a Woman Farmer. Not long after it was published, a venture capital firm reached out, offering to invest $1 million to help scale my operation. The whole town was buzzing. Even the mayor showed up in person with a delegation, declaring my farm a priority agricultural initiative. But Eric, I hadn't told him a word. Somewhere deep down I thought, one day those who look down on me will be stunned speechless. Then just before Joshua's first birthday, Eric called. Mom, we're throwing him a birthday party. If you're free, you're welcome to come. Vanessa said, just try to dress nicely. I didn't flinch. I simply smiled, voice calm. All right. I'll keep that in mind. After hanging up, I stood in front of the mirror. My face was weathered. My hands rough and calloused. My clothes loose, outdated, like someone who had just walked out of a barn. I picked up my phone. Hi Linda. Sell all the pigs from the current batch. Then I made another call, to the buyer, to finalize the sale of the farm. A week before the party, I signed the official farm transfer agreement. I split the funds into two parts. One went into a new organic food venture. The other was invested long-term, safely tucked away in the bank. Next, I walked into the town's beauty salon and got the full works. A deep facial, hand treatments to soften the calluses, even had my nails professionally done. Then I headed downtown to a luxury boutique and picked out an Italian designer outfit. A personal stylist helped me choose accessories and a hairstyle to match. When I stepped in front of the mirror, fully dressed, I hardly recognized myself. There stood a woman with poise, with color in her cheeks and clarity in her eyes. Was that really me? Henry stood frozen in the doorway. That's my wife? I turned and smiled. Not a good look? He broke into a grin. No. It's perfect. You look incredible. Like it was always meant to be. I also picked out a sharply tailored navy suit for Henry. When we stood together in front of the mirror, smiling, it felt like we'd gone back in time, back to our wedding day 30 years ago. For Joshua's birthday party, I dressed with care. Around my neck was a diamond necklace I had just commissioned, $30,000. It was the first time in my life I had spent that kind of money on myself. As soon as I reached the entrance of the banquet hall, I heard Brenda's voice booming like she'd grabbed a microphone. Well, look who showed up. Who thought it was a good idea to let the farm woman in here? Hope that animal stench doesn't ruin the appetizers. Vanessa's father, Gary, gave me a passing glance full of disdain and muttered, Your son's sweet, bringing his mother along like that. She didn't come empty-handed, did she? I smiled faintly. Said nothing. Eric's face turned beet red. He mumbled, Brenda, Gary, enough please. Vanessa looked me over, her eyes full of suspicion and that same old contempt, until she noticed the fine Italian suit I was wearing, the polished hair, the flawless makeup. For a second she froze. Her mouth twitched into a forced smile. Grace, you're looking creative today. The tone said it all. You're trying to imitate us. I smiled back, calm and steady. Thank you. You look lovely too. I handed her the gift I'd prepared. She didn't even glance at it, just passed it to the nearest waiter like it was a takeout box. Inside the hall, I found my seat, in the far corner at a small round table with no name card. I was surrounded by distant relatives and friends from Vanessa's side, none of whom I knew. The room buzzed with chatter and laughter, but my corner felt like a storage nook behind the kitchen. Twice, servers approached me politely asking, Ma'am, are you with the catering staff? Could you help pass the hors d'oeuvres? I forced a little laugh. No, I'm the birthday boy's grandmother. Their faces flushed and they hurried away embarrassed. Eric had vanished. Vanessa was holding court at the main table, laughing with her parents and friends like nothing else existed. They spoke in French on purpose. Every so often one of them would cast a glance in my direction with that smug look. She can't understand a word we're saying. Someone whispered, Who's that old lady over in the corner? Vanessa barely looked up. My mother-in-law. From the country. You don't have to fuss over her. Another guest offered a half-hearted courtesy. Oh, where's she from? I opened my mouth to respond, but Vanessa cut in. Some tiny place called Willow Creek. You've never heard of it. They raise pigs, grow vegetables, that kind of thing. The guest nodded, lips curling into a mechanical smile. Well, that's charming. Then turned away to refill their champagne. I sat up straight in my chair, back stiff, hands resting quietly on my knees. My expression was calm, like still water. As I was waiting for my moment. The ceremony began. The MC bounded on stage, grinning so wide it looked painful. And now, let's welcome Joshua's proud grandparents, his maternal grandparents, to say a few words. Brenda and Gary immediately rose hand in hand, basking in the attention as they took the stage. "We've prepared a special gift for our grandson," Gary beamed. "We've opened a $20,000 fund in his name, to help him grow up healthy and strong." Applause swept through the room. Guests nodded in approval, murmuring compliments. I stood up slowly. From my handbag I pulled out a thick folder and a bank book, then made my way toward the stage. The murmuring in the hall grew louder, curious, confused. Vanessa's face drained of color. She leaned toward the MC and whispered urgently, "End it. No. We don't need anyone else going up there." The MC hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but didn't dare stop me. He gave a strange smile. Ma'am, and you are?" My voice was calm and unwavering. "I'm the boy's grandmother. From Willow Creek. Yes, I raise pigs. And today I'd like to give my grandson a gift." Vanessa's smile contorted, more painful than polite. "Grace, that's not necessary. We've already received gifts, thank you." I didn't respond to her. I stepped toward the microphone. Every eye in the room was fixed on me. For a moment the silence was so sharp, you could hear the squeak of a server's cart rolling across the floor. I stood at the front, lightly tapped the microphone and spoke in an even, unhurried tone. "I'm Joshua's grandmother. Yes, I'm from a farm. These hands of mine have raised pigs and tilled soil." A wave of murmurs rippled through the guests. Some chuckled. Others whispered behind their hands. I scanned the room. Brenda was smirking. Vanessa was scrolling on her phone. Gary looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I paused, drew a breath and continued, steady but firm as steel. "Today I just wanted to share something small. I've recently sold the farm I built with my own hands, Willow Grove Farms." I opened the folder and held it up for all to see. The bold print of the contract figures stared back at the audience. With complete calm I lifted the purchase agreement high into the light. "This is the signed transfer of ownership for Willow Grove Farms. Total sale amount, $1.2 million. The room went dead quiet. Even the piano player missed a note. Gary scoffed. "You've got to be kidding. Pig farmer? Signing $1 million contract." Brenda let out a huff. "Probably fake. Anyone can print a sheet of paper." Vanessa leaned toward the MC, her voice sharp and panicked. "Cut her off. No. This is humiliating." I didn't even look their way. Instead, I pulled another set of papers from my bag and held up a slim bank ledger. "This is the education trust I've established for my grandson Joshua. $100,000. Set aside for his future should he ever wish to pursue school." I paused again, sweeping my gaze across the stunned faces. The MC stood frozen, completely lost for words. A hushed wave of chatter spread across the crowd as people reached for their phones, searching Willow Grove Farms in real time. Then someone stood up, shouting from the back. "She's telling the truth. I read about the farm sale on a business site last week. There was an interview with her." Gasps and excited murmurs filled the air. Brenda's smile froze on her face. Her lips twitched awkwardly. "That can't be right. Maybe she mortgaged her house for the money." Gary, fuming, marched toward me and tried to snatch the papers. "Let me see that. There's no way someone like you made that kind of money." I calmly pulled the documents back. "Sorry. That's not something for you to touch." His face flushed red and a few guests stepped in to stop him. Vanessa stood stiff, her jaw clenched, eyes darting. You can't be serious. You've been raising pigs your whole life." I turned to her and smiled gently. "That's right. I raise pigs. You've all said I'm dirty, backward, uneducated. But it was those dirty pigs that fed dozens of families and turned me into the kind of woman you never believed could exist." I glanced at Eric. He stood frozen beside his chair, face flushed, shoulders locked, not knowing where to look. "I could have stayed silent," I said. "But you invited me here today to be humiliated. So I figured, why keep quiet?" I pulled the mic a little closer. "I'm Grace Miller. From Willow Creek. A farmer. A pig-raising old woman. And I'm expensive." The room fell into complete silence. Then from the corner a young man began to clap. Others joined in, the applause rising in waves like an oncoming tide. I gave a slight nod, a calm smile, and turned to leave the stage. Just then Brenda hurried toward me, her tone flipped like a light switch. "Grace. We've always admired you. You're such a strong role model for women. Really inspiring. Gary followed, all grins. Let's stay in touch, yeah? We'd love to have you over for dinner sometime. Vanessa forced the words through gritted teeth. Grace. There's been a misunderstanding. Let's not hold on to the past, okay? I stopped walking. Looked at them all, one by one, as their faces strained into warm smiles that didn't reach their eyes. You called me dirty. You said I was an embarrassment. You said I was lying. And now you want to cozy up to me. I stepped forward, my voice soft. But each word landed like a hammer. Do you deserve that? Then I turned, heels clicking against the polished floor, and descended from the stage. My skirt swished behind me like a blade slicing through silence. At that moment the entire ballroom stood still. The three of them, Brenda, Gary, Vanessa, left standing like wax figures, frozen under the weight of their own disbelief. After the party ended, Henry and I didn't linger for photos or polite goodbyes. I told the driver to take us straight back to the hotel. When I peeled off the expensive outfit, all I felt was relief, like I was finally breathing in clothes that fit my real skin. The next morning, Eric was standing outside our hotel. No phone call. No text. Hands shoved deep into his coat pockets, shoulders hunched like a schoolboy who'd been caught cheating. I opened the door and looked at him. I didn't say a word. He kept his gaze low. Mom, I'm sorry. About yesterday. So I said nothing. I was so wrapped up in what Vanessa thought, in being accepted by her world. But yesterday I realized, the only one I was ashamed of was me. I leaned back into the couch, my eyes falling on the paper bag in his hand. He placed it carefully on the coffee table. His voice was tight. I made breakfast. Myself. It's not store-bought. I don't know if you'll want it. Henry stood, picked up the bag, gave a quiet nod. Thank you. I didn't take it. I looked at Eric. You want me to forgive you? He nodded. Like a child. I smiled, soft but firm. I can forgive you. But I'm not going back to being the mom who waits around hoping you'll come home. He blinked. Stunned. I'm not your footnote. I have my own name. My own land, my own business, my own worth. If you want to see me again, don't bring breakfast. Bring a photo of Joshua. Then I stood and opened the door for him. He lingered at the threshold, eyes misty but smiling, tentative. I'll bring the photos, Mom. I promise. When the door clicked shut behind him, I knew I had finally stepped out of that lonely corner, right into the center of the light. I didn't return to the old farm in Willow Creek. Instead, with support from the state agricultural program, I invested in launching a women's agricultural innovation cooperative. I called it Sunroot Sisters. For the first time in my life, I wasn't building something for anyone else. I was building something for me. Part of the money from the farm sale funded classrooms, an organic garden, a craft workshop. I hired a legal advisor to help women in town with land disputes and asset protection during divorce. Those neighbors who used to whisper behind my back, now they came knocking, asking how to write a business plan. Every Tuesday afternoon, a circle of young moms and older women would gather on the lawn, listening as I taught them how to turn 1 acre into a livelihood, how to turn a side hustle into a real business. Henry built me a podcast booth on site, and together we recorded every story, every lesson, sharing it with women who needed to hear it. American Country Living ran a feature on me. The headline read, "From Pigpen to Power, the woman who took the stage." During the interview, the journalist asked, Grace, if it weren't for that birthday party, would you have told them about your success? I shook my head. No. Then why did you finally speak up? I smiled. Because sometimes it's not about wanting to speak up, it's about needing to. Otherwise, people will keep thinking you're just that quiet little pig. Henry was slicing an apple beside me as I spoke. He chuckled softly. You know, these days you talk and people freeze like they just saw lightning. I looked back at him. I used to stay quiet because I thought it wasn't worth it. But now I know, every word I say, every decision I make, it's worth something. After our weekly sessions, the women would often hang around asking questions. One young woman once pulled me aside and whispered, Grace, now that you have money and respect, do you still ever feel lonely? I paused, thought about it, then answered honestly. I used to feel lonely because no one ever listened when I spoke. But not anymore. Because now I'm finally speaking in my own language. One evening, I sat alone on the bench near the greenhouse, listening to the crickets, feeling the soft hum of dusk. Then I heard footsteps. Eric was back. This time he didn't bring breakfast. He brought Joshua. The little boy could walk now, ran up in overalls, big eyes wide as the sky. Grandma. His voice was small, unsure but not afraid. I knelt down and wrapped him in my arms, eyes burning, but for once the tears didn't fall. That night Henry poured me a small glass of whiskey. "You've fought hard enough for one lifetime," he said softly. "From here on out it's time to live for yourself." I raised my glass, tapped his gently. "To the woman who walked out of the pig pen. And to the woman who'll never bow her head again." Out in the distance the lights in the greenhouse still glowed, soft, steady. Like all the tears I'd ever shed. Like all the fire I'd ever carried. Gentle now but no longer controlled by anyone else. At last I had become the kind of woman who could applaud for herself.
That night at the party, I stood frozen in the middle of the banquet hall as my mother walked up to the stage, slow, steady, composed. My heart pounded in my chest, palms slick with sweat. She wore a tailored navy pantsuit I never would have imagined her picking, a touch of makeup, and her hair swept up in a clean, elegant knot. And yet, despite how different she looked from the woman in my memory, the one hunched over the laundry basin outside the pig pen, hands cracked and calloused from labor, I knew she hadn't changed. I had become distant, cowardly, willfully silent, and in that silence, I had become part of the cruelty. 3 years ago, I brought Vanessa home for dinner. She stepped through the door and immediately wrinkled her nose. "Does your house always smell like this?" I said nothing, just cracked a window open. Mom pretended not to hear. She even cooked 2 extra dishes, her best ones. At dinner, Vanessa took one bite of the stewed beans and muttered, "It's way too salty." I kept my head down and kept chewing, pretending I didn't hear that either. Even then, I knew Vanessa and my mother would never get along. But I played dumb, tried to straddle both sides. After we got married, Vanessa told me she didn't want my mother visiting. "She dresses like a relic from the past," she sneered. "And she always smells like livestock." I didn't stop her. I even stood beside her as we called Mom. "Maybe don't come," I said coldly. "The air in the city isn't good for you." I still remember that silence on the other end of the line. The pause. The forced smile in Mom's voice when she finally said, "All right, take care of yourselves." I was an accomplice. I knew how Vanessa and her mother mocked my mom behind closed doors. I knew they laughed at the clothes she mailed us, the photos she shared, the way she pleaded just to see her grandson. And every time I said nothing, it was a knife in my mother's back. But that night, under the glow of chandeliers, my mother stepped onto the stage and announced the $1.2 million sale of Willow Grove Farms like she was made of steel. I was stunned, ashamed, speechless. Gary scoffed. "You've got to be joking." Brenda snorted. "Obviously fake." Vanessa leaned in, hissing at me. "Go up there. Get her off that stage." But I didn't move. I couldn't. Then Mom pulled out the second folder, an education trust fund. $100,000 for Joshua's future, she said. I watched Vanessa's eyes change. It wasn't awe. It was greed. "You knew about this?" she whispered to me. I shook my head. Her jaw tightened. "Can we access it?" She said we, but I heard it clearly. She never saw my mother as family. Just a bank account. And then it all came rushing back. Mom's meals, her handmade blankets, the gifts she sent, the texts, the voice messages, the photos all ignored, blocked, discarded. I was the one who told her the farm was too full of bacteria. I was the one who made up the doctor's advice not to visit. I was the one who physically kept her from our door. And she still stood on that stage and said, "I'm from the country. I raise pigs. But I'm also very expensive." That sentence cracked something wide open in me. Years of numbness shattered in an instant. After the party, Brenda and Gary hurried over, plastering on fake smiles, trying to cozy up. I didn't stop them, but I didn't follow. For the first time, I stepped back, watched them with new eyes. They were never my family, just props I used to cover my own shame. In the car ride home, Vanessa was quiet. Right before we pulled up to our place, she muttered, "Your mom really kept her cards close. She's manipulative, you know." I looked at her. "Are you jealous?" She scoffed. "Jealous? Of what?" "She's just a pig farmer." I nodded. "Yeah, and that pig farmer put me through college. Carried this family for decades." Vanessa turned, voice sharp. "You're not seriously thinking about letting her into our lives now, are you?" "I'm not going to take care of her," I said calmly. She doesn't need you to take care of her. But you should learn when to shut up. Her face twisted. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, from today on, you don't get to insult her. And I won't let myself be the leash that holds her back anymore. We had our first real fight in the car that night. She demanded to know if I regretted marrying her. I didn't answer. She yanked off her diamond ring and threw it onto the seat. Why don't you go live with your mom then? I finally see you for who you are. I didn't say a word. Just turned my head and stared out the window at the banquet hall, still glowing with soft light behind us. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I sat in the lobby of her hotel waiting. At 5 a.m, I walked up to her door and knocked. When she opened it, I couldn't lift my eyes. I couldn't breathe. She looked at me and waited. And I said, Mom, I woke up. I know it's late. She didn't hit me. She didn't cry. She just nodded once. Late is still better than never. A few days later, Vanessa filed for divorce. She said she was done with this family flipping upside down. Said she wasn't going to live under the shadow of a pig-farming old woman. She handed me a list, houses, accounts, every asset neatly itemized. Said she was willing to walk away with nothing, as long as Joshua's education trust is transferred under my name. I laughed. A bitter, broken laugh. You don't deserve it. Then I signed the papers. Let her go. Threw out every last shred of the illusion I had tried to protect for years. Afterward, I took Joshua to see Mom. She was in the greenhouse, sitting beneath a string of hanging lights, surrounded by young women as she taught them how to manage livestock costs. I walked over with my son in my arms. Mom, I said, he knows how to say Grandma. Joshua looked up at her with wide eyes and a shy smile. Grandma. Her eyes welled up, but no tears fell. She just gave the faintest nod. Quiet. Steady. And in that moment, I understood something. She hadn't waited for us to turn around. She had walked far enough forward that she didn't need our validation anymore. And now, finally, I had the chance to start learning how to be her son.